Hello, friends. Good morning, good day, or good night. My name is Paul Tokuzolu, and this is the Matrix BJJ podcast. Today's guest is Samuel Rivera. Samuel is a documentary filmmaker. He has his own company called Samuel Rivera Films, and he puts out documentary and video content around mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu fighters, and all sorts of other facets of life similar to those areas of sport. Samuel is also a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu who trains regularly out of New Jersey, and it was great to have him on the show. In this episode, we get into how to make a really great video for whatever project you want to do, whether that be your own video company or maybe just a cool video for your gym. We talk about a lot of other topics too surrounding what Samuel does, and it was really great having him on the show. So please welcome my guest, Samuel Rivera. What's up? Thanks so much for doing this show. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
My pleasure.
So, I've been watching a lot of your videos this week, and I know we've talked, and you've probably heard a lot of feedback about your one about Tom Deblass and stuff like that. Yeah. But I really like a lot of the other ones you've done too. Can you tell me, like, how did you get it started? How did you get started making these videos?
Well, I initially got started doing the videos sort of by accident. What was about a year ago when I first started doing this, right before there was going to be a belt ceremony at my school, and I thought it'd be a really cool idea to do a video on the actual ceremony, but then also on my jiu-jitsu coach, Jamie Cruz, just to kind of get to know him and just kind of put a cool video out there just for the school. And what ended up happening was I edited it. I put, similar to what you see now, with the music, the kind of like the foliage in the videos. And the school really liked it. They're like, man, that was really good. So I said, I had a lot of fun doing it. Let me see if there's some other coaches in the area that I knew about, if they'd be interested in doing it. And sure enough, they were like, yeah, let's set it up. And before I knew it, what was happening was I started getting schools contacting me to hire me to do videos on their coaches and of their business, and things really just started to like explode really, really quick. So like I said, that was about a year ago, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So that's kind of how it all started. It wasn't really, I didn't go in there with the intention of saying, hey, you know what, this is something that I'm going to want to try and do full time eventually. It was just really something that started as a hobby, and it's kind of turned into somewhat of a passion of mine. So that's kind of how I got started.
Man, that's so cool. Are you full time now, or are you part time?
Well, I work full time as a logistics analyst.
Oh, cool.
At a company. So right now the filming thing is just completely a side thing.
Oh, cool.
So it's not enough where I'm able to pay the bills, but I have a full time job where I'm able to still support myself obviously and my family and support the business. So the goal is eventually to completely live off of the filming business, but like anything else that you go out and do, it takes time and you got to be patient. So to answer your question, no, I'm not doing it full time, not just yet.
I know the feeling. I know exactly how that all works out. Man, that's so cool. What are some of the early difficulties you had when you started trying to do these projects?
Really, the biggest struggle that I had was with technical stuff. So getting the right camera, getting the right audio gear, making sure that I didn't interrupt the person I was interviewing. I found that the first interview I did on my jiu-jitsu coach, I had to go back and do so much post editing to the actual interview, because as he was talking, you don't realize it, but as somebody's talking, you'll say, "Oh yeah, okay, I agree," and it's like that completely ruins like the whole point of the conversation. It's you're there to record and interview the other person, and so it took me a little bit of time to like kind of just shut my mouth and listen to the person talk. So that was probably the biggest thing outside of getting the right camera gear. At first, when I started doing this, I was working off of like a cheap laptop. And I was using Windows Movie Maker, and I don't know if anybody's ever used that before, but it's like probably the worst program you could ever use in your whole entire life for video editing. I mean, this thing crashed like every 5 minutes. It was such a pain in the ass. So that was really the biggest struggle. And then, like anything else, as you continue to create projects and learn about something, because I never went to school for any of this, you get better. You try and improve. It's very similar to jiu-jitsu, right? You the first day on your mat, or your second day on the mat isn't going to be as bad as the first day. You know what to expect. You come in there somewhat prepared mentally, or the technique that you want to roll with, and as you progress in the filming, similar to the way you've progressed in jiu-jitsu, you're gonna learn and improve. So, like I said, the biggest thing was probably technical gear and getting that all straightened out.
Yeah. It's funny that you made the comparison to jiu-jitsu, because I've had a very similar experience with this podcast, that like it's a very introspective journey doing something like a podcast or just anything that is your own project, if that makes sense. Very
No, it totally does.
You learn a lot.
When your first day of jiu-jitsu, I mean, you have no idea. You have an idea of what to expect, but when you reflect back now, you said you've been doing it for 6 years. If you reflect back and ever got to roll with your former self, if you were to somehow be able to go into a time machine and do it, you're light years ahead of where you were just 6 years ago. And I'm excited personally to see where I'm going to be, with the filming stuff 6 years from now. Like, I've only been doing it for a year, and I've learned so much within the first year of doing this. I can only imagine where I'm going to be in 5-10 years. Who the hell knows what the hell what this will turn into. So there's a lot to learn, similar to anything that that you're passionate about. But as long as you keep on driving forward, I think you'll succeed.
Yeah, I've learned so much about myself doing this podcast. Just in the past few months I've been doing it. Like you said, one of the first lessons I had to learn was really shut up when the other person is talking. And that's something that expands to my life now. It's something that I've learned just for life in general. Like, when someone else is talking, don't say anything. It seems so simple.
Yeah, it is simple, but we also like to hear ourselves talk. I don't know about you, but like sometimes I like to just kind of regurgitate what I already know. But there was a saying that I heard somewhere. I'm not sure who said it, but it was like something to the effect of, when you're talking, you're just repeating stuff you already know. When you're listening, you're starting to learn something new. And I really try and apply that to my everyday life. It's a lot harder when I'm not in an interview setting, like when I'm not sitting there asking somebody that I'm interviewing a list of questions. When I'm talking to my family members or my wife or friends, it's a lot harder to do that, I find. But I try and take those lessons that I learned from the filming business to my everyday life, similar to what you just said.
Yeah, man, it's been for me. One of the things that I learned was how often I laugh when other people are talking. Like, I don't say anything, but like almost my acknowledgement that I heard what you said, or that I heard what you said, was I would laugh. I'd be like, ha 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 ha. And I realized, like, it's really doesn't make sense.
The biggest thing I learned is you start to learn, because you obviously after you're done doing a podcast, you go back and you listen to it, and it's probably the worst thing, right, to listen to yourself.
Horrible.
Similar, it is, right? So when I'm listening to myself after the interview, first of all, I'm just like, oh man, that is so gross. Like, I hate hearing myself. But you learn the tendencies that you have within the conversation. You learn when you say like, oh, I might say like a lot. I might say a lot. And it's kind of like a lesson for yourself to like, hey, I don't like these characteristics about myself. Let me try and change that. So, when I'm doing these videos, I get a lot out of them because I'm learning a lot about myself, but also B, I'm learning some really good life lessons from the people that I interview. So it's kind of it's a great thing on both ends.
Mm-hmm. What have been some of your big takeaways that you've had from doing your project, and maybe like some of the stuff you were talking about that you try to take into your everyday life?
Really the biggest thing is probably, again, like I said, outside of the technical stuff, has really been just listening, learning what what the life lessons are in these conversations. Just hearing people, hit rock bottom at times, right? With Tom Deblass, he just using him as an example, he had to overcome a lot with, his father being into drugs and alcohol and just having a rough upbringing, and just learning that, you might not have it as bad, and just to be grateful for what you do have. And a lot of times it's easy to take things for granted. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've gotten out of doing these videos. Just, be grateful for everything that you have in your life.
For people who haven't seen some of your videos, but maybe like this is like the first time that they've met you over the internet, so to speak, can you sum up like some of the highlights of videos that you've done in the past?
Really, if anybody logs onto my channel, they'll see that pretty much every one of my videos is about people hitting rock bottom or people overcoming adversities in their life, and how they can use, naturally a lot of my videos are about jiu-jitsu and MMA, but how they've used that as a tool to make their life better. So if you log on to really any one of my videos, you'll see that, if they can do it and they can overcome these obstacles, so can you. So that's really what my channel's about. It's just, the kind of a tagline that I've been putting out there is be inspired. And that's really the message that I'm trying to put out there is just, if you're going to come onto my channel, you're going to find that there's a lot of inspirational messages out here, whether it be somebody that's overcoming drug addiction or dealing with a loved one that has a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, or overcoming any other adversities. You'll come onto my channel and say, hey, you know what? If they can do it, so can I. That's really what it's all about, I think.
That's really cool. That's a really cool message. And very it's very, very good and cool to see that you have you got a theme, you have a theme in mind.
Yeah, and eventually I'd like to branch out to other topics outside of like MMA and jiu-jitsu, because there's inspirational stories everywhere. If you don't really have to look far to find an inspirational story. And I'd like to, showcase those stories and let those voices be heard as well. Recently, I learned about a guy that I don't know him, but I was getting my hair cut at my barbershop, and he was talking to me about how he went. He just recently came back from the Philippines, and he purposely went over there just to cut kids' hair for free.
Oh, that's cool.
And like these kids live in poverty. They live in like this cemetery. Literally like a cemetery, and some of them don't have any parents, and they're young. They're 3, 4, 5 years old, and these kids are really just supporting themselves and trying to raise themselves. And he went over there to to cut these kids' hair, and I thought that was such a cool story, because he didn't have to do that, and to travel that far away from New Jersey to the Philippines, that's a long flight.
Yeah,
just to go over there with some hair clippers, So things like that, I think, for me, that inspires me. It's like, what? These kids, some of these kids out there in other countries don't have the luxuries that we have here. There was a video that I recently put out with Jocko Willink. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah, he's a former Navy SEAL, and he's got an very inspiring story. But he was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and I took an excerpt of that where he was talking about how here in the in the States, and you could really apply this to any modern country, how we have modern medicine available and clean water and technology, really at our fingertips. And in other countries, they barely could even, they have to travel miles to get clean water. And that's what their day is consumed of, is just to get, not necessarily even clean water, just to get water. They have to travel miles, and, these people are getting sick. And it's just, it's sickening to hear that, I can go right downstairs to my bathroom faucet and, put my cup to it, and I won't get sick from drinking that water. Meanwhile, these people are fetching water from like dirty mud puddles, and that's really their only option. So, again, going back to what I was saying before, just the biggest life lessons that I get out of this is just, not taking those things for granted and just being grateful for all of that.
That's a really good lesson. And like you said, you can find stories like that all over the place. I have a friend, my friend Joe, he's been on this podcast actually to talk about this a little. He's in the Peace Corps right now, and he's in Mozambique, and he's doing exactly what you just described, where he's going through, or he has to find his own water. He has to walk a couple miles every day to get water, and it's quite the event. It's quite the event to get water.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be messaging with him and I'll say like, "Hey man, how's your day?" And he's like, "Oh, it's good. I didn't find any water today, so I'm good. But tomorrow I'm really gonna have to find it, or I might be in some trouble."
It's crazy. Like even just taking your basic thing like a shower. Like we come back from a jiu-jitsu class. The first thing I want to do is like jump in the shower and rub that grime off of me. Imagine not being able to take a shower for weeks at a time. That's it's crazy. But that's something that we were raised with. So it's easy to take it for granted because you don't know any better. But just looking back and reflecting on what other people have to go through, and just being grateful for having those luxuries.
Mm-hmm. What other topics do you want to explore in the near future, or what other projects are you looking at pursuing?
I mean, I've considered doing like a daily vlog, or maybe like even a weekly vlog, but I'm not sure how interesting that'd be because my day-to-day is kind of like it's pretty much the same. I wake up early in the morning, I edit, I take care of, I have breakfast with my family, I go to work, and I come back. It's like it's kind of the same thing over and over again, and then drop in your weightlifting training session and jiu-jitsu training session here and there. So that is something that I've thought about doing like eventually, but I want to stick within the same themes really. Just hearing inspiring stories, whether it's somebody helping somebody else or somebody that's helped themselves overcome an obstacle in their life. That's really the stories that at this point that I want to put out there.
Yeah.
That's that's really when somebody comes to my channel or visits my website, I want them to find a bunch of videos that are basically on that. So that's really what I'm looking to explore.
That's a good theme for sure. I think themes are very important. I think you all, particularly, and I'm sort of biased to this, but I think people can really relate to those kind of stories. Yeah.
But from a branding perspective, I think that similar to like if you go to pick whatever channel you watch. Let's just say it's the History Channel, and all of a sudden you turn it on one day expecting to watch a history documentary, and you find that there's a Nickelodeon cartoon. You're like, what the hell is that? Yeah. So I think from a branding perspective, you have to be consistent with the messages that you're putting out there. You can venture off a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, it's got to be it's got to have a common message or have a common theme.
I just read this book. Do you know who Stephen Pressfield is?
Yeah. The War of Art, right? Did you read that?
Oh, it's the best. War of Art and Turning Pro is my favorite out of his books. But I just read his new book, which is called No One Wants to Read Your Shit. And it's so good. It's all about, he gets into the like very practical advice for if you're in the creative business, how to like make your work more appealing to people, if that makes sense. And
totally.
The big thing he focused on was that he was like, you need to have a narrative of some sort. Like whatever it is you're doing, you need to have, it needs to be a story. So like, for example, using your documentary of Tom Deblass. Like, you could just have, the life story of Tom Deblass. Tom was born in this year, and he went to this high school, and this is the thing that he did, and now he owns a jiu-jitsu school, and it's very successful, and he competed in all these tournaments, and he won, and now he does these things. And then people would be like, oh, that's interesting. But then if you put it through the lens of Tom, went through all this hardship, he had these struggles when he was growing up, and you give it a narrative, you give it like some, like you said, a theme, and it makes it interesting.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention that, because that's when I first started doing these videos, I said to myself, the one thing I don't want to do is do that, like you just said. I don't want to put, we've all heard stories of, hey, this guy's got a school, he's won these, these tournaments, he's got this fight record, blah, 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 blah. To me, that shit's boring.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to know about what drove you to the gym to begin with. Like, why do you let a bunch of men sweat all over you and try to choke you out? Like, why? And I want to hear those stories. And going back to what you were saying about finding the narrative, I think that's crucial, because when I'm sitting down and I'm having a conversation with these guys, the conversation is usually an hour and 20 minutes long, and I shrink it down to try and find what the common theme is in that conversation. What are they talking about a lot? And by picking and plugging those things out, I think you find that narrative.
Yeah.
So anybody out there that has aspirations to create films like this, you've got to go back and listen to that conversation over and over and over again until you find, oh, what I see here, what he was talking about. Let me make that the video. Because I could easily just go ahead and dump a bunch of B-roll with the hour conversation. But who's gonna sit there and listen to an hour-long conversation of me and this person going back and forth? It's not going to be anything interesting. And what's the life lesson learned in that? I think a short little 5-minute to 15-minute long video, you put that out there with a message, and A, it's a lot more interesting, and B, it's a lot easier for the average person to consume. It's a lot harder for, I don't know about you, but if I see a video on YouTube that I'm interested in watching that's 30 minutes long, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll watch that later. And I might not ever get around to watching it. But if something's like 3 to 5 minutes long, I've got 3 to 5 minutes. I can sit there and watch that in between breaks at work. So, that's the other thing, from a branding perspective, you've got to, look at, does somebody have, the average person have time to sit there with their mobile phone, because that's how we really consume everything nowadays. Sit there for a half an hour and watch your video. Odds are most people aren't. So if you're trying to get views and things like that, it's important to like really chop it down and get to the nuggets of that story. Yeah
It's very interesting that you say all these things, because it jives with that book that I just mentioned.
That's interesting, because I never read his book. I've heard of Stephen Pressfield. He's been mentioned a couple times on like Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But it's on my Amazon wish list, but I've never gotten out to buy it yet. So I've read a lot of other books in the meantime. I've got my collection of books over there on the bookshelf, but never got around to doing that one.
Man, his new one, the one I mentioned, No One Wants to Read Your Shit, I think you would really like it. I mean, the other ones too, for sure, but this one is actually, the other ones are great for like, get you motivated to go out and conquer the world. And then this one's like, okay, so you have creative aspirations and you've like started to do some stuff. Let's like talk about how you're actually going to be successful.
It's really good. And just even listen to what his tagline is. It's true. Like, nobody wants to read your shit. Nobody wants to watch your shit.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to hear your shit.
Yeah.
And that's somewhat of a struggle of mine. Like, there's been tons of times where like, a lot of my jiu-jitsu teammates are fans of what I do as well. But a lot of guys, like, they're fans, but they also don't get the time to watch it. So it's like, hey, I'll ask them, hey, did you watch that new movie or that new video with Tom Deblass? They're like, no, I haven't watched it. I saw it. But it's like, man, the people that you think are your biggest supporters aren't, it's not their fault. They don't have the time to watch everything you do. But it's like, how do you go out there and make somebody care about what you're doing that doesn't even know you? Like, I obviously did something to, Tom also has a big name, so he obviously draws, a lot of attention. But you went out and watched that video, and you were interested in I guess, hearing my story. So I did something right with, with the branding and with my videos to make you want to, reach out and talk. So, it's hard. It's hard to get people to care about what you're doing.
I think it's not that people don't care. They're busy, and there's so many things vying for everyone's attention. You have the new Joe Rogan podcast, you have the new Tim Ferriss podcast, you have the new book by this guy you like, you have this new TV show came on that you want to check out. Like, it's just so many things, you really have to, like you said, people don't have time to watch a 30-minute video unless it's from someone, unless you have a huge name or something. Like, there's some reason people are going to want to watch your thing.
Right. And until you get to that level, like, there's certain people, I'm sure, that, for example, like, I'm a big, Joe Rogan podcast fan or Jocko Willink podcast fan. Mm-hmm. Like, if he puts out a video, if he puts out a podcast, I might have a bunch of other podcasts that I listen to that I might put on my queue list because his just posted and I want to listen to his first. So it's like, getting that, and I'm not there yet, but how do I get to that point where, like, people, and this sounds very egotistical, but how do I get to that point where people drop what they're doing to watch my videos?
Yeah.
That's a huge struggle. So, but that's also the fun part. It's, finding what works and what are people looking for.
And have you read the article called "No One, a thousand True Fans"?
No.
It's I forget who wrote it. It's like it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's a famous article about marketing. I'll put all this stuff in the show notes for anyone who's listening, by the way. But it's basically boils down to like 1,000 true fans. Like, your goal shouldn't be to reach millions and millions and millions of people, one time. It should be to build 1,000, or some, that's like a decent number, but it's somewhat small, like 1,000 people who really like believe in what you do, and they'll buy or listen or watch anything you do because they just love what you're doing. That's more valuable than a million people who kind of know who you are.
It's kind of like the old saying of, quantity or quality is better than quantity, right? It's like you'd rather have a bunch of dedicated fans than a bunch of, casual fans, for sure. Absolutely. There's a guy that I follow, and I always find it interesting. He's a YouTuber. I'm not sure if you heard of him or anybody that's listened to this has ever heard of him, but his name is Casey Neistat. And he's a YouTuber. His show really isn't about anything in particular, but the point is, he's got I think 6.5 or 5.5 million followers.
Wow.
And I always find it interesting to see, when he posts a video, how many people actually watch it. Within a couple minutes, he's got over 100,000 views. But my point here is that he's got 5.5 million followers or 6.5 million followers. But on average, his view count is only maybe 3 million, or and that's for a really viral video.
Yeah.
Most of them are going to get only maybe 1 million views.
Yeah.
So it's how many, again, going back to what you're saying regarding quality over quantity, how many of those fans that hit that subscribe button are actually watching and consuming his content? Mm-hmm. So the numbers aren't always the end all be all either.
Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes this is getting really into the weeds. People who aren't into marketing and things like that might be bored of me talking about this by now, but nevertheless, sometimes more numbers actually hurt. And you probably know this, but YouTube ranks your videos based off of how long people watch the video. So if you have 1 million clicks on your video, but let's say it's a 10-minute video, you have 1 million clicks on it, but each one of those people only watches for 30 seconds. YouTube is going to be oh, this must be a shitty video. Let's not put it in our search results, Right. So you, just going back to what we were saying, it's better if you have 1,000 people who watch the whole video than 1 million people who just click on it, watch it for 10 seconds, and then click away.
Right. And at first too, like when you're first starting, like a YouTube channel and using those algorithms, like, because you're still new, not everybody, you're only going to get maybe 100 views, 150 views. And those, even those small numbers though, will hurt you. So if you get, let's say 150 views and 50 of them drop off after, less than halfway through your video,
Yeah.
It's going to be ranked really low.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean that you should be discouraged, and it doesn't mean that your video sucks. Maybe the person's, they just don't have enough time to watch the full thing, or, something happened, it's definitely not a reason to get discouraged either. So,
No, it's not.
The numbers are a good indicator, but they're not something you should be completely measuring yourself off of. I personally, look at the numbers. Obviously, I look at my YouTube subscriber count. I look at who's following me on my Facebook page. But more importantly is the interaction that I have with my fans. Like, I get countless times I get emails from people after I put out a video where they're like, "Man, thank you so much for putting that out. That literally changed my life. Like, I'm going to stop drinking because I watched this video."
Oh, wow.
Or I'm going to go join jiu-jitsu because, what, if this person can change your life using that as a tool, then why can't I? And it's so inspiring to hear that kind of stuff. So, for me, that's kind of my gauge. You know what? I'm doing something right. Even if I'm, affecting just one single person to completely do a 180 in their life, at the end of the day, it's worth it. And that's really my main goal, is to, like, again, put inspiring stories out there, but to change lives for the better.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's 100% worth it. Even if you don't have 1 million subscribers on YouTube right away, it's totally worth it. And
Right.
kind of transitioning into another area is, I've been seeing a lot of people like what you're doing, in the sense that, like, you are someone who is trying to make a living in jiu-jitsu, but you're not owning an academy, and you're not like a world champion athlete. You know what I mean? Like, traditionally, those are the two areas where people are like, okay, if you want to live the quote unquote jiu-jitsu lifestyle, you have to either be, owning your own academy, or you're a world champion athlete. One of the two. That's it. And people like you are, branching out there and saying, no, there's actually tons of other things you can do in the industry. So I think that's really cool. That's what I'm trying to do as well. What advice would you have for someone who's looking to live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, so to speak, and be involved in the industry, but they don't want to own an academy, or maybe they're not ready, or they're not a world-class athlete?
I think whether it be within jiu-jitsu or anything else in your life, I think that you have to, you hear this over and over and over again, but you have to really find what you're passionate about. Like, if you could sit down and do something all day long, what would that be? And, whatever that is, try and pursue that. Like, I didn't know that I wanted to do these videos until I started doing it. And it became a passion of mine. But I didn't go in there with the expectation that, like, this is, or with the goal that this is what I want to do. Like, it kind of just fell on my lap. And in doing that and experimenting and just, using and being creative, I found something that I was passionate about. That, ironically, was through jiu-jitsu. So, to give somebody else advice to say, hey, you know what, do, A, B, and C to find to find a living out of doing whatever it is that you like doing. I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer, but I think what you got to do is just find what you're creative, find what you're passionate about, and just keep doing that. And whether or not you make money off of doing that, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, life is about being happy. And I think that, as long as you do things that make you happy, you're going to find happiness in your life.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's all about.
Man, I'm really glad to see that you have been successful, over the past year. And I think that you'll enjoy a lot more success going forward.
I mean, I hope. I wouldn't say that I'm successful just yet. I mean, again, like I said when we first started here, that I haven't been able to, completely support myself. So if you really look at it and you look at the advice that I just gave, I'm not able to. Again, I'm not able to support myself just yet, but I'm doing something that I love. And at the end of the day, whether or not 10 years, 15 years passes by, and I never make a single dollar off of this, I could look back and say, you know what, somebody's watched my videos and somebody's gotten something out of it, and I know that putting this content out there has changed somebody's life for the better, hopefully. And that is worth way more than whatever dollar somebody can throw at me.
I think that you're doing that for sure, especially like what you said earlier. People are messaging you and things like that. Think about all the people who probably aren't messaging you, but have still watched your videos and gotten something out of it. It's really, really special, and it's really cool to hear, man.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from every single person that's been inspired by something that I put out there, for sure. But it is cool to I'm sure you get your fans that contact you and say, hey, man, that was a really cool podcast. And, that kind of like encourages you to like keep on doing what you're doing. So it's cool to hear that feedback for sure.
It's mostly my mom. My mom will hit me up. Be like, that was a really good podcast. That guy you had on, he was pretty cool. Like, where'd you meet him?
That's funny.
Yeah, it's good times. But man, one thing I wanted to ask you about some of your early videos. How do you feel they hold up compared to some of your new ones? Do you like hate watching them, or do you think that they're still pretty good? Because
I refuse to go back and watch them. There's actually my first like 2 or 3 videos. I actually just recently the other day I'm like, man, I should go back and watch it, and then I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, because like they're just look. The story is good, but I'm so hard on myself when it comes to like technical things. Again, the audio is like you hear like too much hiss in the background, like little things that the average person probably wouldn't pick up on, but I do because you know better now. It's like, again, going back to using jiu-jitsu as a reference point, or as an example, I should say. When you were a white belt and you did an arm bar, you thought you were amazing, right? But now that you're a purple belt, and when you get to a brown belt or black belt, and you look at, if you were able to record yourself when you were a white belt, and you look back when you're a black belt now, you're like, oh man, that's like the worst armbar ever, right? Like, because you have a different set of eyes, you're seeing things through a different set of lenses.
It's embarrassing.
So, yeah, it's really embarrassing. So it's like there's times where I'm like, man, I want to delete that video, but you know what? It's good to look back at that later on. I have a progression, right? I'm able to look back at what I started at and see where I'm at now. And I'm able to see the evolution. So, man, I don't want to ever go back and watch those videos, but eventually I will, and kind of laugh at myself. So,
man, I feel the same way. The only way that I feel good about it is on one of Tim Ferriss's podcasts a long time ago. One of his episodes, I think it was called How to Build. How to Build an Audience. It was about like building a fan base. And one of the things he said was, never delete your old stuff, because one day, someday years down the road, you might have like a group of like hardcore fans, and they're going to love looking at it. They're going to be like, oh, this is when he was first starting out. Like, this is great. And he was, he's saying like, imagine if, like if you have a band that you really like, and then you like find their first CD and you're like, oh, they were so bad. This is so cool. He's like there is that element to it of that.
How different was their style then in comparison to now? That's true. But man, that would take a hardcore fan base of mine to watch those poor videos.
Me too, man. My first episodes of this podcast were recorded on my cell phone, so wow. It was like it's total shit,
But I'm sure you've learned so much from doing it, right?
Like, it's great. For sure.
And when we first jumped on, I saw you had like a little mic set up for your laptop, so it's like.
Yep, I've got my Blue Yeti. Shout out my Blue Yeti, but I've come a long way since the cell phone in my car days, but
Yeah,
we're
yeah, but that's how you learn. I think like anything else in life, you've got to take that first initial step.
for
And
sure.
that's really the hardest part, is just taking that first step up the flight of stairs toward whatever your goal is.
For sure. One of the things that like happened to me in the very beginning, and maybe you had a similar experience, but once I started producing a podcast and I started telling my friends about it and like my training partners, that's when I realized like, oh shit, I've got to now like make a podcast every couple of weeks, at least like every other week or so, like I can't just be like, oh yeah, I haven't made anything for a while. You know what I mean? Like I have to keep making stuff, and it has to get better and better. So it's like once you start, you've like started that momentum, and now you have to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to what I was saying before, it's just from a branding thing. Like people want to hear you're gonna get a certain amount of fans out there that are gonna expect content to come out from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing a podcast here and then you don't come back around for 3 months, then I'm like, wait, who is this guy? Like you start to lose interest.
Yeah.
From your fans, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And like hypothetically, if you had some hardcore fans or people who are really dedicated, people like take it as a it's like disrespectful if you don't do a podcast, if you don't put out something like, sometimes like if I have a podcast or a YouTube person who I really like and they don't release anything for a long time, I'll think like, man, like what, they don't love me, they're not putting stuff out. But
it's funny you mentioned that, because there was a guy that used to do like these UFC cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed what he was doing. And then he didn't put anything out for like 8, 9, 10 months. And then finally I thought to myself, I actually forgot about the guy. I'm like, oh, maybe I just didn't see him in my feed. So I went out of my way to go look at his channel, see if there was any new videos. And there was nothing there. And what I ended up doing, I just hit the unsubscribe button. I was like, I don't even want to be bothered with this anymore.
Yeah.
Why am I, subscribe? What room is it taking for me, to have a subscription on YouTube? It doesn't. But I lost interest. I'm like, all right, this guy's obviously not putting out any more content. So why am I going to continue to be, to be a subscriber?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Because you've
got to have a little bit of a consistency for putting stuff out there.
Yeah, and it's good for you. It's good for me too to put out more stuff, because it's like you're practicing your craft in a way, and for you, I'm sure, is the same.
Yeah,
you gotta get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was gonna say something I forgot, and then I just remembered. When I put out my work, for me personally, like when I first put the video out and I'm uploading it, I get clammy hands still to this day. I'm like, oh man, is everybody going to like it? What are they going to think? Like, am I going to, are people going to think it's stupid? Like, and it's not even a video about me, but it's it's my name on it. So, I still to this day get nervous. Like anytime I upload something, I'm like, yikes, how's this going to be perceived by others? So,
yeah.
But you just got to go out there and do it. And even if it's a total failure, that's how you learn,
Yeah, for sure. One more question. I know we've got to go soon. One quick question. If there's anyone listening or any of your fans and they want to do something kind of similar to what you're doing, or maybe they just want to make a cool video, like they want to make a cool highlight video of their tournaments, or maybe they want to do like, a cool video for their gym, what are some things they can do to get started making a good video? Just, with basic equipment.
I get this question actually. I get asked this question a lot. What camera should I get, or what gear do I need? And I always tell people the same thing: use what's in your pocket. These days, most people have an iPhone or some sort of other, Galaxy. These phones take really good quality pictures and video. And in some of my videos, still to this day, I use iPhone footage, stuff that I take off of my phone, and I throw that in my video, and you would have no idea.
Wow.
What's most important and the best advice that I can give to anybody is find the story and make it interesting. Like, anybody could put a video out there of themselves working out, or of them training, or of a tournament, but try to find something that, try and put like a different spin on that. How do you make that interesting? Is it with, within the editing? Like, how do you do a lot of cuts and put a lot of like, just put the submissions, just using that as an example? Or do you put like, footage of, you can watch tons of tournaments, right, out there, like local tournaments, and you'll never see any footage of the coaches getting interviewed or being asked questions like, oh, what is he doing wrong? Like, that could be an interesting part right there that nobody else is doing. So again, the best advice that I can give somebody is, go out there and just do it. You don't need to go out there and buy the most expensive camera or get the most expensive gear. Just go out there, start recording, and learn from the experience. Just go out there and do it.
What type of editing software do you use now? Do you use Premiere or Sony Vegas or anything like that?
No, I just use iMovie.
Oh, really? Now. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just use iMovie. And it's a really underrated program. I think it's for free software that comes with with a Mac. I think it's great. I think it's it's got a ton of features and it's not overly complicated.
Yeah.
And you don't need to have any kind of experience with any kind of editing to jump right into this. It's super user friendly. So anybody out there that's listening, or for yourself, use your phone, upload it to iMovie, throw a soundtrack on there, and start playing with it. You don't need a lot to create something that people are going to watch. And just to use an example, I don't know if you know about this, but have you ever watched The Godfather?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, right. It's probably one of the best movies out there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a household movie title. That movie was edited with just the guys cutting the movie, the film of the movie and taping it together.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So
it's crazy.
And they were able to create that. So for you to, we're in a great time now where you have awesome technology that you don't have to sit there and stitch film pieces together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't have to overthink what you're doing. Just go out there and create the story.
Samuel, thank you so much for doing this show. Before we take off, is there anything you want to promote?
I'm going to be putting out some more videos before the end of the year. I'm working on a Ricardo Almeida story.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm also putting out probably another Jocko Willink video. So, just check out my YouTube channel, Samuel Rivera Films. Just hit that subscribe button and expect content from me, every couple weeks.
Samuel, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Thanks a lot to Samuel for being on the show. Really great talking to him. I feel like him and I, we're going the same route, so to speak. We're doing a lot of a similar type of project with Matrix, and he is pursuing the documentary angle of things. So I'm really excited to see where Samuel goes. And furthermore, the types of opportunities that people like him will open up in our industry. Showing that like we were talking about on the show, that you don't have to be an academy owner or a world champion to make a living out of jiu-jitsu. It's really great having him on the show. Please check out Samuel at samuelriverafilms.com. All of the links for everything that we talked about in this episode will be in our show notes at matrix.com. So please check out our website. You'll also see our whole podcast and video library for everything that we've done in the past, including interviews with Dean Lister, Michael Yera Jr., and a whole bunch of other really great people. So please check that out, matrix.com. You can also find all of our social media links for Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube on that website. And please give us a follow, a like, a tweet, whatever, a subscription, whatever it is that you can do. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and a review. It's a really, really great way to help support this podcast. So if you've been enjoying all the episodes we've been putting out, go ahead and subscribe on iTunes and give us a rating, hopefully 5 stars, but it's up to you. Really appreciate you guys supporting this show. It means a lot to me. Once again, huge shout out to my friends in the band Waves Overhead. Waves Overhead is a band out of Maryland, which is my home state in the United States. And they put out really great music, and they are the official theme music for this podcast. Their song, To Make Amends, is the theme song for Matrix, and it is awesome. I love it. I jam out to it all the time. If you want to support Waves Overhead, go to wavesoverhead.bandcamp.com. You'll find their whole discography there of all of their music. You can download it, and the way that Bandcamp works is you can pay whatever you want. So you could get all of their music for $0, or you could give them $100, or you could give them $1,000. If you're really generous, maybe $1,001. Whatever you feel led to do by the spirit of jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna play their song right now, so give it up for Waves Overhead.
What?